Enrique. Enrique.
Are you mailing the podcast?
Let's see, I've got a letter here. The postman just showed up. It's Enrique. I got a telegram.
There's like a 5-second delay between us ending a sentence and you responding.
Can you guys hear me now?
Select characters where gaming meets analysis.
Hello and welcome to the 31st episode of the Select Characters podcast. I'm Sam Yates. I will be your host, and joining me after a very rambunctious Thanksgiving festivity, I've got some friends here with me. Let's see, I've got Christopher Anderson. What's up, man?
None of that Thanksgiving over here. I had to do without turkey.
Period?
Yep, just nothing. All I had was dry rice.
Oh, the Thanksgiving staple.
Yeah. Just you and a buddy sharing a single bean over a trash can fire.
As some Americans may or may not know, us Europeans, we don't really do that Thanksgiving stuff.
That's right, because isn't that like a pale reminder that we left you behind?
We're glad that you're gone.
Okay, all right, let's just cut that right there, and let's move on over to
I think
Ryan
that's true, though. All right.
What's up, Ryan?
I'm doing good. I'm at the coast right now on a vacation, and so it's the Select Characters beach cast right now.
Oh, nice.
Oh, look at you.
Look at me.
Turkey and a beach.
Yeah, it's great.
Decadence.
But yeah, I just had Thanksgiving, now hanging out at the coast, and that's it.
All right, come out to the coast. Have a couple of cocktails.
Oh, yeah.
That's Die Hard. All right, fine, whatever. Enrique, what's up, man? You've seen Die Hard. Everybody's favorite Christmas movie.
I haven't.
Yeah, it's the best fucking Christmas movie there is.
I would say it's tied with Gremlins for the best Christmas movie.
I completely forgot Gremlins 1 is Christmas, you're right.
Also Home Alone, though, so I don't know.
I don't know. Home Alone's kind of showing its age.
I don't know if I would rank them, but definitely they're all in there somewhere. What's up, man? How are you?
Pretty good. Good Thanksgiving. Lots of food, lots of family, all that fun stuff.
Sweet. And now we are here and we are ready to podcast. So let's talk a little bit about what we've been playing. And it has been another wonderful week for video games and a half holiday week, which is great. So let's talk a little bit about what we've been playing, and let's start with Enrique.
I have been gone back to XCOM and Banner Saga because I got this craving for turn-based combat, and both games are pretty similar in mechanics, but they're actually really different aesthetic style, which is kind of a really cool deviation.
Yeah, the Banner Saga looks like an 80s animation series, doesn't it?
Yeah, dude. Well, I mean, it's I can't forget the name of the artist, but it got modeled after Sleeping Beauty, the guy that did like those original kind of Disney films.
Oh, right, cool.
So it has like kind of like that really soft color palette and stuff like that, and it's really heavily inspired by Norse mythology, which is freaking amazing.
Yeah.
The only shame of it is that it's supposed to be like a 3-part game, and the Banner Saga is just part 1, and they're just now working on part 2. So I got kind of tricked into buying an episodic content game.
Oh, no. I didn't even know that game was like that. Wow.
Yeah, I mean, like you get a pretty self-contained story like within that first game, which is good, but there's still like this overarching narrative that they haven't like kind of even started to touch on. It kind of becomes really apparent when you beat the game that there's a lot of plot points that got kind of left behind and unfinished, so that was kind of irritating. But mechanic-wise, it's a really solid game, and it goes back and forth between this turn-based combat like you see in XCOM, and you have this overworld thing that acts almost like Oregon Trail, where you have like a little caravan of people with soldiers, and you just kind of like travel from one point to another, and you have to manage like food and your resources. And I think like the longer you travel, you start dwindling food resources, and you run into like random events that can happen when you're traveling in the overworld. And I guess how you come out of it you can lose important characters from the story. You can actually lose like parts of your crew. You can actually gain food or resources. It's actually really pretty in depth.
It sounds pretty fun.
Yeah, it's actually a lot of fun, man. Like, it's I don't know. Like, I love turn-based combat. And it has like that element of strategy on it because I think when you're fighting enemies, they have 2 different stats. There's like their basic health pool, and then there's an armor stat. And you have attacks that only damage armor and attacks that only damage health. And there's just kind of certain amount of, I guess, like strategy you got to pick where you have certain characters that you might want to whittle down someone's armor and then have somebody else take the pot shots for their health, or you might also want to have like vice versa, or you might want to have people focusing strictly on health because like there's kind of a give and take for each one. The lower health somebody has, the less damage they do, but the higher armor, the less damage they take. So it's pretty interesting.
All right, cool, man.
That sounds pretty fun.
Yeah, but that's pretty much been my weekend.
Sweet. All right, let's cruise on over here. Let's talk to Ryan. What you been playing, Ryan?
Well, I've been kind of on a nostalgia kick ever since playing Pokemon Fire Red, so I hopped into some Left 4 Dead, the first one, and I just kind of messed around in the different what are they called? Like the different campaigns, I guess, online. I just kind of played some of that a little bit, and then I did some custom maps, some of the custom the wave maps, the timed ones where you survive as long as you can. And that was really cool. I played this one map that was it was Helm's Deep. So, like there was this.
I played that one.
Yeah, it was great. Like there's this giant field in front of you, and you see the zombies coming. You can shoot down at them, and then when they start getting into the keep, you have all these layers you can fall back to that have the the Gatling guns and that kind of thing.
Like they had at Helm's Deep.
Yeah, just like they did. With the gas canisters and everything around to shoot, it was great. That map was actually pretty hard because after a while they just start sending tanks at you, and it's like at a certain point you just can't keep up with it anymore. But kind of a busy week for me. I got finals coming up, so just a little bit of Left 4 Dead and Fire Red for the game club.
How are the servers these days for Left 4 Dead? Did you find people to play with?
Yeah, it was still pretty easy. I think a lot of people still appreciate the first Left 4 Dead.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I've never had trouble finding people to play with whenever I start up that game.
Yeah, it wasn't hard to find people.
Cool.
That game is fantastic.
Yeah,
agree.
it
is.
It's like butter. That's what I feel like when I play that game. It's like everything is just so polished. I really like it.
You played Left 4 Dead 2, right? The one that like that, because I think Left 4 Dead 2 now has everything from Left 4 Dead 1 as well, doesn't it?
Yeah, I didn't play Left 4 Dead 2 as much because all of my friends played Left 4 Dead 1 back when I played, so I never really picked up 2 because we were poor high school students. But I've played Left 4 Dead 2, and I enjoy it just as much. It's just I go back to Left 4 Dead 1 just because I know it better.
I actually want to sit back and play like a realism mode with some people for Left 4 Dead 2 because that's actually always been really fun.
Yeah, that would be
with the realism mode. Like when you're playing the regular game, you get a highlight of like when your party members get kidnapped or like get attacked or they go out of sight. You can see their silhouette. Same with the items and stuff. All those kind of notifications get turned off in realism mode, which is kind of cool. It adds like a little layer of tension.
Yeah, I guess you gotta be way more selective about how you do things.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really cool. I like that.
That sounds super scary, but super fun.
Yeah,
It is.
Well, let's talk to you then, Mr. Anderson. What you been playing this week?
I had a moment of weakness and I bought Far Cry 4 for the PlayStation 4.
Is that weakness? I've heard that game's great.
Oh, yeah, it is, but I just don't have a lot of money right now.
I got
you. I shouldn't have done it, but in the end, I'm glad I did it anyway. It's a great game. It is. It's in a fantastic place, like the sort of Tibetan-looking place with a lot of mountains and valleys and stuff. Pagan Min is a fantastic main antagonist, voiced, of course, by Troy Baker, because 9 out of 10 people in games are voiced by Troy Baker. But he does it really well. The bow and arrow is my absolute favorite weapon to play with, because playing sneakily in that game is just amazing. Infiltrate a base and throw down some bait, and in walks a fucking elephant.
Yeah.
And kills everything.
All right.
It's just, the game's full of moments like that, over the top violence, and it sort of revels in the violence, and it's just great. It's a great sandbox. I'm having a really good time with that, and the story it's not great. Mm-hmm. But it's not bad either. It's good enough to just sort of propel the entire thing forward, and that is good enough for me. Plus, who plays Far Cry games for the story outside of the appearances of the main antagonist? Because Vast was really good in Far Cry 3, and Pagan Min is really good in Far Cry 4.
Did you get the ending after 15 minutes?
Oh yeah, that's like the first thing I did when I started the game up, and it is great. It is sort of heartwarming, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought it was actually a really cool twist, and like, I guess it kind of sucks because, no offense to the developers, but just listening to some of the interviews, sometimes they come off as kind of full of themselves. But they did make a real interesting point where they were talking about, I guess, like the whole concept of violence in video games, and basically the idea that you always have a choice, and people like to pretend that they don't, and like, oh well, I was forced to murder this entire town. When in reality, like, you're doing it because you're reveling in the violence, like you were saying. Like, that's, Far Cry is a game where you just blow shit up for fun.
Yeah.
Give me the skinny on this 15-minute thing here.
When you first start the game, basically, like, something happens and you run to, was it Pagan Min?
Yeah, Pagan Min.
And he actually gives you, because the whole point is, like, you're basically going back to your homeland to kind of drop off your mother's ashes. And he stops you and he says, hey, he basically, I think, attacks like the bus you're in. He kind of starts killing everybody indiscriminately, and he sees you. He recognizes you. He's like, "Hey, tell you what, wait here for 15. Give me 15 minutes. I'll be right back, and we can go drop your mother's ashes off. Just don't do anything." And of course, like, he walks away, and then normally a player will grab a gun, just start shooting the place up, and escape, and then that kind of sets the game in motion. But if you wait those 15 minutes, he comes back. He's like, "Hey, thanks for being patient. Come with me." You jump in the helicopter, he flies you up to the mountaintop, and you put your mother's ashes on a shrine, and then the ending happens.
That's it, game over? That's nice. I like that.
Yeah.
It's a good touch.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. Yeah, I like that ending.
And you actually get two chances to do that, because I think later on in the game, you run into him again, he gives you the same option, saying, hey, you're kind of an asshole last time I offered you this choice, so you can do it one more time. Will you take me up on it? And you can
they ruined it.
Didn't know that.
Can't do it twice, man. That's too much. That's trying to force the issue.
No, I mean, but it's kind of cool, though, because it kind of brings up that concept of, like, the choice and violence, and, how we always think that's the only alternative, when in reality, it's, it's what we're doing because we want to.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, doing it once, that's awesome and hilarious and really cool, but doing it again as if to say, like, hey, look at this thing we did, that sort of ruins it.
Yeah, but you don't know that that's a possibility if you've not read up on it. So... Plus, it's still a choice. Stop hating stuff that has no effect on you.
Hey man, I'm just saying. It'd be cooler the other way.
Oh, jeez. Kind of everything. Anyway, Far Cry 4. I'd recommend it. It's pretty good.
How does he measure up to Voss as a villain?
Sorry?
How does he compare to, like, Voss?
Voss is... He feels more dangerous in a way because, the way he acts, he's just insane. Pagan Min has got that sort of quiet, sort of delirious and very dangerous intelligence that's bubbling below the surface, like waiting to snap at any given moment. I don't think they're comparable, other than the fact that they are both pretty well-written villains with well-written dialogue. But I prefer Pagan Min's performance because I really like Troy Baker as an actor, and he's really good at portraying certain characters. And this is definitely a character that he's very, very good at portraying. So I prefer Pagan Min, but Voss is also very, very good.
Neat. Anything else besides Far Cry?
I bought Elite Dangerous, in for a penny, in for a pound.
Yeah.
and I bought that yesterday, and it's all up in playing. It's give
me the wide shot of Elite Dangerous. What is up with that?
So it's basically our entire Milky Way to scale, and you get let loose inside that universe, and you can do whatever the fuck you like. You can become a spy, you can become a trader, you can become a pirate. The scope is ridiculous, and to me it feels like training grounds when No Man's Sky comes out.
And it's a multiplayer or a single player thing?
Both. You can play online. It functions as an MMO, but you can also play it as a single player if you like offline. But I just play it online, and online's pretty cool because you never really encounter people because the universe is vast, incredibly vast. So when you do encounter people, it's often quite pleasant to have a little bit of a chat with the other person, exchange places that you've seen or situations that you've encountered. Or the other player is a pirate maybe, which means that you're fucked because I've got a starter ship with starter equipment. So you blast me out the sky in like 2 hits and there goes my cargo and I have to start all over again.
Oh no.
But
is there like a story or a narrative to it, or is it just kind of like they drop you in and say good luck?
It's like the EVE Online variety of story. There's backstory to everything, but you don't directly engage with it, although the faction that you choose, there are different factions you can align yourself with. But the factions you can choose and the battles they fight against each other, they can influence the universe, like which systems belong to which faction and stuff like that. And the mechanics you have to do in order to get your faction rolling and hit your faction goals is actually pretty engaging, and I'm still learning about that. But it's actually pretty damn deep. I think it goes a lot deeper than I initially expected. But the gameplay itself, there's an insane amount of downtime there. It's actually ridiculous how many minutes you'll just sit behind your chair not really doing anything because you plot your course and the only thing you need to do is go straight ahead. But even though you're not really doing an awful lot inside the game, I didn't care at all because it was so compelling to do. It looks very realistic. It feels realistic. And, you look at the universe at all times. What more would you like?
Just cool to be in space.
Exactly. And people told me before I bought it, like, this is basically Euro Truck Simulator in space.
How hyped did you get?
Actually, I quite like Euro Truck Simulator too.
That's what I'm saying,
so I thought,
exactly.
That sounds like this might cater to my interests. And lo and behold, 10 hours later, and it is catering to my interest, and I'm starting to figure out like more complex systems and stuff. And I'm starting to sort of realize how big this game actually is. I'm not sure if all the content there is actually as deep as I think it is, but for the time being, I'm having a really good time. Plus, it's quite cheap on Steam right now, so who cares? I've had my money's worth already, so every hour extra I get to play that game and I'm having fun. That's just a cherry on top.
Cool. Well, that sounds fun, man.
Yeah, and that was it for me.
Is the combat real time, like dogfighting?
Yeah.
Space simulator, ups and downs in like 3-dimensional space and all that stuff?
Oh yes. Yeah, it's very involved. It's not like Eve where you just target something and your ship fires automatically. No, it's an actual dogfight, which is also why I usually get blown out of the sky if I'm in a combat situation because I can't maneuver a spaceship for shit.
I probably can't either. I don't blame you because it's absolutely every direction is available to you. Like what?
Yeah. Plus the controls are pretty hard to do if you're not playing with a flight stick. Especially like things like docking in stations. There is no automatic docking. You actually have to request docking permission at every station you encounter and then go to the correct landing pad that they assign to you and you have to land the thing yourself.
Oh god,
which
no.
Is,
oh god.
Landing
no,
is like its own fucking game.
Yeah.
It is pretty fun, man. It's like the way that the game just draws you in is absolutely fantastic because the first time you start an open game, they call it like the MMO mode of that game. You start in a space station and you have to do a fucking flight checklist before you can lift off. And I'm like, oh my god, this is awesome.
I feel like as soon as I try to dock in that game, it's just going to be like the most horrible metal screeching sound that everybody in the space station can hear.
Oh man.
Yeah. I did that a couple of times, and I will probably do that more times in the not too distant future because it is quite tricky. But it's satisfying once you eventually do it. And the game just looks amazing, man. It just looks slick. It feels great to play. And I don't know. I feel like I'm on the cusp of a giant adventure. And I actually can't wait for this podcast to be done so I can jump back into it before I go to bed.
Awesome, man. That sounds like fun. Mm-hmm. All right, cool. Let's see. As for me, well, it was the Steam Autumn sale, right? So I got a lot of games for rock bottom prices, some weird stuff.
Yeah, so you have more than 500 games now.
I do, yeah. That was, I mean, I bought a bunch of, I kind of cheated because I was like 20 away and I was like, all right, what's 50 cents? All right, give me all those. Or there was like a thread on Reddit that was like, like hidden gems under $1 or something like that. So, let's see. Some of them are cool. There's a game called Roller to the Realm, which is a pinball RPG. It seems cool. I don't know. I haven't really played that one too much. Let's see. The highlight for me was this game called Dungeon Mans, which I've been having a really good time with. It's a roguelike, tile-based sort of thing. Real wacky sense of humor in that game. And a lot of it does a few things that I think are really interesting. There's a meter that drains in real time, even though it's a turn-based game. There's enemies who can move you around, which is sort of unique in a roguelike to have somebody with a whip like be able to sling you 4 tiles over and this kind of thing. So even though it is your turn-based tile roguelike, there's a lot of really dynamic aspects to it that I think are really interesting. And all the animations are like over the top and everything in that game. It's one of those things like you'll either think it's funny or you won't, but I actually personally think it's hilarious. But it's, I mean, at the same time, it's not just that. Like, there actually is a really good, deep game there. on top of that like wacky layer.
Knowing what you know about my preference in video games, do you think that this is the roguelike I would enjoy? Just purely curious, really.
I mean, you might. I mean, like, do you think it's funny that like the very basic footwear is called blandles?
Yes.
Okay, I mean then you're probably good. Like, do you think it's funny that there's like a scroll of bees please that just like summons like a horde of bees to like attack people? Yeah, see? So I mean you're probably right there. I mean, like, when you kill people, everybody gibs every time you kill something, and like the animation quality is great. I think you might, man. And in contrast to a lot of other roguelikes, you have like a home base in this one that they call the Dungeon Man's Academy. So every time as you go through the game and you sort of drop items off at this academy, the next time you start, you're a little bit more powerful. So you don't have to start from scratch. There's like a sense of progression there that actually helps make it a little easier, like over time. Mm-hmm. And quality of life stuff in that game's good too. Like if you try to go into a dungeon and you're over leveled for it, they give you an option. They're like, this dungeon's going to be easy. Do you want to go in there or do you just want all the loot? And you're like, I guess I just want all the loot. And then the dungeon will just like shoot out swords and potions and stuff.
That's super convenient.
Yeah, like just streamlining stuff, in a way that makes sense and is interesting and just, extremely dynamic compared to other roguelikes, which sort of feel a little bit static. And the animation quality is great. It's really pretty. I've been just loving it. So that's my pick of the week.
Okay, then.
Cool.
And that about wraps it up for me. So let's cruise on and let's talk about some topics.
A topic of discussion I want to bring to the table is the whole concept of voice acting and how it can contribute to a game. I've seen this discussion pop up a lot with Fallout 4 especially, how they chose to have a voice protagonist, which is a complete departure from what they've had previously. And it's kind of cool on the one hand, I think, because it kind of gives your character a little bit of personality. But I think when it's used in certain games, it doesn't work as well. Like I think personally for Fallout 4, I don't think it was a good idea because I think it takes away a little bit of the almost player agency you feel. I found like when my character's responding to certain questions, I already have this kind of personality built in my head and the tone he's going to say it in. And when the character comes out and it says it in a completely opposite way than what I imagine, it really kind of clashes with my immersion.
Yeah, he's not a blank slate, is he? He or she, the person in Fallout 4.
They're not.
Yeah, they're not.
Yeah, that's a difference.
Well, I mean, not even that, but I mean, like I said, just even like the minute discussions, like, when something simple as saying like, oh, no, thanks, or like asking a question. And the character goes out and he asks in a manner that's completely different to what I imagine. It just kind of, it's very jarring to me. I was kind of wondering if you guys had ever gone through that.
Yeah, I remember that a lot in the Telltale's Walking Dead, because, they give you the options stuff and you get to pick, what is going to be said, but sometimes they deviate even from the choices.
Right.
Yeah.
And it kind of hits you weird. It kind of hits your brain sideways. You're like, that's not what I wanted him to say.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
You know what the funniest instance of that I can recall? L.A. Noire. Because the character of Cole is freaking hilarious whenever he would just kind of like fly off the handle for no reason whatsoever, and it was the most unexpected moments.
Yeah. It's because you would use like press or something like that, and he would just fly off the handle.
I'd even press, man. I remember like I think one of the cases where like the little girl gets like raped in the Hollywood studio. You're getting her story, and then like one of the options is doubt, and I'm like, you know what? I think she's not telling me the whole thing, so let me just press doubt. And after this girl's like crying her eyes out, I'm thinking, I was like, are you sure that's all? Cole just goes like, you're a fucking liar, huh? And I was like, whoa, dude, chill out.
Whoa.
Ease up.
Slow down.
But yeah, dude, no, it's really funny when like the voice actor, I guess like they have their own interpretation of how they're going to deliver the line, and sometimes it just does not match up with what you kind of expect for the character.
Yeah. In that case, it's all due to the prompts, right?
Yeah.
And I wonder how much of it you could put at the feet of the prompts and say, like, the things you're giving me to decide my next statement aren't clear or aren't, a good representation of the line that's about to be delivered.
Oh, you mean that the sarcasm option in Fallout 4 does not really tell you what he's going to say? Is that not enough?
I haven't played it, so I don't know.
Okay, just so you know,
like,
it is quite bad. Like the voice situation in Fallout 4, like the dialogue options, that they are not great.
I feel like your sarcasm option wasn't enough to tell me what you were going to say.
There's a really cool mod for the PC though that actually tells you it actually writes out the line that the character's going to say, which is really nice.
Yeah,
That's really cool.
one. Yeah, that does a lot to alleviate people's problems with that dialogue system. Yeah.
What about voice acting where it's not necessarily tied to a conversation or anything? It's just stuff that it's ambient voice acting. Like I mean, League of Legends does it, Guild Wars does it. I mean,
Borderlands 2
pretty
did
much
it, and it was freaking amazing.
Yeah, Borderlands.
Yeah.
And yeah, they just say stuff all the time. Like, do you guys like that, or do you find it repetitious? Because I tend to find it repetitious after a while, and I get kind of tired of it. In League of Legends, I saw some thread the other day that got like thousands of upvotes on Reddit because somebody said if they had to hear Caitlyn say boom headshot one more time, like they were going to lose their mind because she says it like 60 times a game.
I mean, that's because the characters only have like a limited pool of combat barks.
Right.
Yeah.
You know? And then like you've set the frequency too high and it just drives people insane.
Yeah. And there's some MMOs that do that. They do like the ambient conversation type thing. And if you play that game long enough, you end up hearing the same conversations 300 times, you know? And I don't know.
Time is money, friend.
I'm not a huge fan of the ambient conversation type stuff.
That actually brings up a really good point, though, that when you have voice acting, it can do wonders for like the ambience, but at the same time, it's almost like an inherent limitation because you can only record so many lines.
And the bigger your game gets, the harder that is.
Yeah.
Usually you won't be in that place where the ambient dialogue is playing thousands of times. So if you just go walking through a town and you hear people talking, that really adds to the atmosphere. But do that 500 times. Like, everything gets boring after 500 times, basically.
That's 100% true. Yeah, Divinity had that problem.
Is it better to not have that kind of stuff and just have like an ambient, like walla, conversation playing in the background so you feel like people are talking? Or is it better to have those that you may get tired of after a while?
No, I'd rather have them fully voice acted because they do give, like sometimes they do give you a lot of background information about the place that you are. A little bit of much needed context, and it makes the world feel a bit more alive. Yeah, it might get repetitive after a while, but I'm just going to bank on the fact that I won't be there for hundreds of times.
Yeah, or the key is just to have a sense of awareness. Like, you're making the game, right? How many times do you generally expect the player to be in this location?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, exactly.
And how many times in there are you going to key this like bit of dialogue from the town and just adjust those in a way that makes sense? Like, obviously, you're going to have outlier cases where people, are still going to get tired of it, and some people will just instantly be tired of it because they heard it twice. But I think that if you are sensitive to that issue and you don't just set it to a loop and forget it, then it's easier to make it tolerable.
What do you think of voice acting in non-choice based games? So basically just story. Take for instance Max Payne. There's a lot of narrative and dialogue
Right,
there.
like the internal monologue and all that.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it can be used to great effect. I mean, I think it helps progress the story and without breaking gameplay, which is the important part. One thing that I like about, Max Payne did it, Diablo 3 did it, the audio logs in BioShock, they kind of give you all this background exposition that doesn't require you to take any time out from actually playing the game. Like, you don't have to stop and read a note or look through a computer terminal and read. You're actively still playing the game. They just have the audio playing in the background.
Like the tapes in Metal Gear Solid 5.
Yeah, and it's great. I think that the voice acting is really well used at that point.
At this point, I find it really hard to call some performances of video games voice acting because you are basically just watching the actor play the part. And I don't know, I like that is a very, very cool development in games nowadays, that they've sort of merged voice acting with actual acting. So a lot of bits in video games, in cutscenes, are just acting performances by real people. And I'm loving that, to be honest.
I think that helps, yeah.
How do you feel that in regards to like a voice protagonist though, and like especially in RPGs? Like, do you like having a protagonist that speaks with a predetermined voice, or would you rather have like a mute one that you can kind of add your own dialogue to?
Mute, like silent protagonists who are still speaking, although not really making a sound, like the one in the original Dragon Age, that takes me out of the game. And then you've got someone like Commander Shepard, who has got a predefined voice, and I just instantly like him better. I find it easier to connect with the character if they have a voice, if they just talk every now and then.
Yeah, I agree with that.
I'm not sure that the level of performances is quite there yet, in the way that, like, if you're watching a TV show with subtitles, you're watching the people and listening, and maybe if you miss a word, you like duck down to the subtitles real quick. But with video games, for some reason, I can't look at the people. Like, if they tell me, like, this is the whole paragraph that this guy's about to say, and then he starts saying it, by the time he's on the third word, I've already read the paragraph because I, like, compulsively can't not. And then it's just like, okay, he's just going to keep talking, and I already know everything that he's about to say.
But don't you enjoy his or her delivery?
Not always.
I think I would if maybe they did it line by line or didn't just drop the whole paragraph at the bottom.
Well, you can just turn off subtitles if you don't want that.
I think that might help. Well, I mean, like, in an RPG, like when you go to talk to somebody.
Oh, right, yeah.
And it's just like, boom, here's everything I'm going to say. And I'm going to start saying it, but you already read it. So
yeah.
Then they just end up talking like, Ebret. And then I went and down to the and like,
I get you now. Yeah,
that's a bummer, man.
There's definitely times when like the voice acting can kind of slow down the pacing of the game, and that drives me crazy.
Yeah. So I mean, if they don't broadcast like the entire script at the beginning, then I'm more willing to invest myself in the performance that they're about to deliver.
I don't because even then though, like there's certain times when like you almost know what they're going to say. Like when you turn in a quest, and you don't want to sit through 2-3 minutes of dialogue. You're like, okay, just give me the loot, like give me the reward. I'm done with this.
Yeah, that's true too. And I don't know where the middle ground between those things is. Maybe it's just a toggle or something like that. I pretty much always play games with subtitles on.
Right. Random aside though, Fallout 4, I thought this was actually a really fun little feature that they added, but you can skip like the actual dialogue with people, and your character actually goes, yep, okay, whatever.
Yeah.
And I thought it was just like a really cute little like bit of humor that kind of reflects what you're thinking.
Yeah, I thought that was pretty funny.
I do find
the
myself...
first time that happened, my character was like, in the middle of a sentence, like,
yep, sure, whatever.
Yeah, that's definitely my internal monologue a lot of times during that stuff.
Well, then Fallout 4 is the game for you.
In general, though, I mean, I do like it. It's just, it feels like there's always something there that takes me away from enjoying the voice acting.
Are there any games, Sam, that you think like the voice acting was pretty good? Like it didn't really bother you at all?
Yeah, Life is Strange.
Okay, so this,
because I mean they're talking to you. They don't drop a paragraph and then read it. Basically, like you have to watch them, and they did a decent job in that game. I'm not gonna say great, but of having them actually have like facial features and like display their emotion through their body language and stuff like that. And like those little factors help to contribute. Like if you give me a static dude who's just standing there and reading the paragraph at the bottom, I don't want to hear him say it. Like no matter how well it's delivered, because it needs to come together with the modeling to sort of give a sense of nuance. Otherwise, it's just like I could just read that and we'd be cool.
Yeah, I get that.
And
I really like when voice acting is used to kind of create ambiance. Darkest Dungeon, I love the voice acting in that one because it's just like, it's kind of like it got an over narrator that just throws in a random like gothic quote once in a while, and his voice is like this dark, gritty, weary kind of scholar tone to it, and I think it really adds to the overall atmosphere. And even then, it's not really too pervasive. It just comes out once in a while, like when your characters die or when you run to a really strong enemy, and it just kind of adds a little bit of exposition. Like, and I love when they just kind of pepper it throughout, just to kind of a little bit of exposure to it.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah. And I mean, you got to spotlight Bastion for that stuff too.
Oh, great!
The narrator on Bastion was phenomenal.
It was Portal also had great narration.
Definitely, that's a very good performance.
The voice of Gladys was great.
Portal 2 with that little robot.
Wheatley, he's
Wheatley.
pretty great. But yeah, he's a really good English comedian as well. And I get the feeling that if I've seen his stand-up shows, like Stephen Merchant, that's the name. I've seen his stand-up shows. He is basically Wheatley in real life. Like, that's just the way he acts.
Nice.
Always. It's fantastic. So it was great to see him in that game. Do you, here's a question. Do you guys think that for game voice actors, they've come to that point where people will buy their games because they are in it?
Not yet.
No.
And for you personally?
It persuades, but doesn't seal the deal.
Yeah, it really depends on the voice actor. I've mentioned him a ton of times here, but I really like Troy Baker, and his involvement in a game usually does sway me to take the game a bit more seriously and think seriously about getting it, because I really do love his performances.
I don't know.
So,
I think there's way too many facets to a game for me to have voice acting be like the overall deciding factor, because I mean there's gameplay, there's graphics, pacing, leveling system, and no matter how good the voice acting is, it can't save a shit game.
Well, I mean, even that is true 100%, but also, and I know that this is highly theoretical, but I feel like the time investment in development time versus impact that you get out of voice acting is just generally not worth it, in my opinion.
Disagree.
It seems like they always end up saying, like, we took 8 months to record all these lines of dialogue, but like the actual impact it makes on the game those two things never level out in my mind.
But the impact it makes on the people is pretty significant. We mentioned that game before on this podcast, and on this episode actually, Far Cry 3. One of the first things that people think about when they think Far Cry 3 is Vars. and the performance that gave that character life and made him tied to that game in pretty much everybody's mind. So they can be a really important part of the game. It's what people remember.
Yeah, I mean, like, there's certain voice acting that becomes almost iconic. Like you said, Boss, Gladys from Portal, like, those are...
Jensen.
Yeah, when you hear the voice, you automatically attribute to, like, that character and that game. So I can understand how being iconic, but by the same token, in Sam's case, I think you're looking at the smaller parts that comprise the whole. So in a game like Fallout 4 or Skyrim, where they record a couple thousand lines of dialogue, it's all ambient dialogue. It's stuff that you're meant to hear in passing as you walk by two people. And I guess maybe it doesn't seem as big when you're playing the game because it's so common throughout, but you have to think of the alternative. Like, if none of that was there, you'd almost have like this really desolate kind of tone to the whole game.
Yeah, I guess that's true too. Yeah, it is. You don't really notice it as much, but it does add value.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, I feel like it's just it's something you have to have now. Like, you can't. I feel like you can't really release a major title without any voice acting and have it be successful. A major title that has room for voice acting.
Yeah, because most AAA titles, they push for that cinematic sort of skew to the gameplay, and acting and voice acting is just tied to cinematography.
Yeah, it's becoming an indispensable part of the craft.
Yeah, and I, for one, am really glad that that's happening, to be honest, because I just really enjoy watching and listening to these performances.
So I've been thinking about character personalization in games and how that ties into our investment into our character and how it ties into how long we'll actually play that game. Because, I mean, I've had characters in games like Guild Wars where I get really attached to that character and I play them for years and years. And there have been times where I play them because I like advancing that character more than anything else. Like, I like advancing them in the world. So kind of ties in also to how we played Pokemon Fire Red for the game club is I also got attached to the Pokemon I picked, and there was kind of a element of personalization in that. So I wanted to ask you guys, how does personalization relate into your gaming experience?
Okay. If you're me, and character personalization and indeed customization, they are the fucking game. I usually spend more time in the character editor than I do in the game itself. Skyrim's a great example. It took me about 2 hours before I pressed OK on the character.
Wow.
Not that it mattered, because about 15 minutes after you start the game, you get a helmet, and that is the last time you see the face of your character. The Sims is also dangerous to me for the exact same reason. Hardly play the game, mostly just try to make a copy of myself and people I know in The Sims. And that also happened in Fallout 4. Spent more time designing a character, and apparently I made him look like David Beckham, which wasn't intentional, but I'm rolling with it.
Hey, David Beckham's a beautiful man.
We would all be so lucky. He is, and the Wasteland is better for it. But that is basically all I like to do in a lot of games. If they offer character customization, I'm usually just heading straight for that, and it'll be hours later when I finally start the game proper.
Does it turn you off from games when everyone's cookie cutter?
Not particularly, because then I'm just playing a character, and I'm completely fine with that. There's actually times where I don't customize the player character at all. Mass Effect is a very good example of that, because they chose a face for Shepard on the cover of each game. So in my mind, that is the only true Shepard, and I'll be damned if I take a different one.
You want your Shepard to be the Shepard.
Yeah, exactly. Plus, the voice sounds like it belongs to the face.
Yeah. Yeah, I kind of do similar. I don't spend quite as much time in character creation, but like I remember for Guild Wars 2, when the servers first came online, like I zoomed through the character creation and I reserved my name, Ryan, and then I went through like afterward and created a character for like an hour and a half. And and that's the character that's still my main to this day when I play Guild Wars 2. And it's hard for me to actually start other characters because I'm so attached to that first one. And it was that way in the first Guild Wars too. You were talking about in Skyrim how you get a helmet and you kind of lose that vision of your head. But something I've always appreciated about Guild Wars was they let you keep the stats for your helmet and you can toggle it on or off, like the appearance.
Yeah.
I always thought that was a really cool thing because like I spent all this time creating this character, and I want to see him. I don't really care about the helmet as much.
The Old Republic has the same thing, and I think World of Warcraft is getting that one, or already has it.
Where like you could decide to show helm or show cloak and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's very good. But in World of Warcraft, it doesn't really matter because you get to choose between like 4 faces and like 5 hairstyles or something, so it doesn't really matter.
I don't see. Like I'm kind of the opposite boat. Like I don't really care as much for the physical customization because like Chris said, you eventually get that piece of gear and you never look back. Like your character's gonna hide under a mask or helmet or something for 98% of the time. Even Destiny, you see your character's face when you're in like the hub area, but other than that, they have their helmet on the whole time. But for me, like that personalization, like the investment comes from what happens afterwards, like the quests you go on, the random items you equip, like your min-maxing style and gameplay, like all that stuff kind of creates this personalized class that you create. And I think that's what I get attached to because like that character becomes really unique. And I was actually talking to a friend of mine about this, and we were talking about Destiny. And Destiny does a really good job at that. When you're creating your classes, for example, it does a really good job of letting you customize that character to the point, like when you're talking about the game, you talk about your Titan. You don't talk about just like Titans in general. It's kind of like World of Warcraft, like my warrior or my paladin. They don't give you like some archetype class with like archetype weapons that everyone's going to have.
For me, it's definitely gear-based. I always feel like I look at my dude and I'm like, yeah, that helmet's awesome. Not like, those eyebrows are close together. That's awesome. Or like, the nose is a certain size. Like the actual look of the character generator, I just always slap random a couple times until I'm in there because it feels like very quickly I'm not feeling the impact of those decisions anymore.
Yeah. You Philistine.
I mean, if I see that dude like 3 hours into the game, I don't go, oh yeah, that's the dude. Yeah, it doesn't matter.
I'm with Chris. I gotta have my character looking how I want him to look.
See, like that's right. That's why I like a system like Diablo 2. Diablo 3, where like you have like the transmogrification. You can just pick what your character looks like in terms of armor and gear. That means a lot more to me than to be able to pick how many nose hairs I want sticking out of like his nostril.
Dude,
that's the most important choice.
Right. I ain't cooking if the character does not have a fucking beard. Mate.
Oh yeah.
If there was a button that said horrific Frankenstein, I would just press that and then we would just roll on. Because
let me talk to you about a game called Fallout 4 where you can do just that in maybe 5 clicks.
Okay, good. All right. But I mean, it's just like, why spend time in that stuff? Like, unless it actually, I haven't seen this game, but I mean, is there a game where it matters?
No, like how you look.
Yeah,
Ryan. Do you believe what you're hearing?
I can't. I got it.
Which actually, by the way,
literally can't.
That would be a cool idea because there are algorithms like to determine beauty based on like facial symmetry and stuff like that. So how about put that in a game and then design your character and then actually have it have an impact on the gameplay?
Otherwise,
what's the
I've
point?
seen is like Skyrim. They'll react if you're like a Khajiit or an Argonian, but even then, it's like, ew, you're a cat. Would you like to see my wares?
Race based. But come on, Sam. Don't try to min-max appearance. Don't try to.
Well, no, I mean,
don't try to test stats.
Sam makes a really good point.
Otherwise, what are you
just
doing? You're
you
just
do.
like wasting time when you could be playing a video game, like designing
You are
a
playing
person.
the video game.
No, but Sam and I agree with Sam because like the character customization, dude, it honestly adds nothing of value whatsoever to gameplay.
Yes, it does.
How do you determine how good you did when you're making a dude? What is your metric on that?
When I feel like, yes, this is the dude I want to walk around with for about 80 hours.
Yeah, nothing is worse than like going to a new environment and you're like, oh man, I bet you my guy looks really cool in this, and you like pan around him to look and you're like, fuck, I don't like this character anymore. And you're like,
you're sitting there, you're like eye depth, and you're like, oh, those eyes are too sunken in. That's only like a 40-hour dude. Let's pull those eyes out a little bit. All right, 80 hours. There we go.
How do you like interact with your day-to-day life?
Well,
you look at women or men and you're like, oh god, that guy's beard is not symmetrical at all.
Here's the thing.
Holy shit, dude. Like, if you have the power to change something completely in a game, like, I want to use a game to the fullest of its functions. If I can change somebody's nose, I will change somebody's nose. I'll tell you one better, actually. When I bought a Dragon Age Inquisition, I made my character. It took me about 45 minutes to do. Then I started playing the game. After 3 hours, I decided, no, don't like his face. So I restarted the game.
Oh my god, you're a silly goose. You're the silliest goose in Goosetown. That's ridiculous.
I have no idea what it was just said.
I said, like, I had a similar experience, and when 3 hours happened in the game and I didn't like his face, you know what I did? I put on a helmet.
Nope.
No.
Can't.
How can you not like it, though? I mean, like, how do you have any feeling towards it at all is what's driving me crazy.
Well, it's because I have the power to change it. That's what makes me care.
But you can't do it right or wrong. You can't.
Yes, I can.
You can't do it good or bad.
I can.
Wait, Sam.
Sam,
in like an MMO or something, you don't go walking through like cities, looking at people's faces, going, "Oh, that looks dumb," or like, "Oh, that looks cool," and then you adjust. You don't adjust your appearance like based on what the coolest look is.
You do
yes,
that?
I go through cities.
That's a thing you do.
And I like look at people and I'm like, "Oh, that guy looks like an idiot. Like that guy sucks at character creation."
Ryan,
that guy
I'm with you 100%.
Are you listening to your, like, listen to the words coming out of your mouth. That guy sucks at character creation.
Yeah, dude. It's
what does that even mean? Didn't that guy also think that he made the coolest dude and he was like, I could spend 80 hours with this fucker right here.
Yeah.
But you're like, that's ridiculous. I mean, that just shows you that it doesn't matter.
No, what it shows
nothing.
me is that my taste is the right taste and everyone else's taste is wrong.
Yeah. Yeah, Sam, you're looking at this in a completely wrong way. There's no right or wrong way to do anything. It's all
there
subjective.
Is to Ryan.
As long as you like, if you want to hit the random button, then that's absolutely fine. You don't care about that stuff. But people like me and Ryan, you know, the people who are right in this case,
how is there no right and wrong if you're right? There's no right except for you're right. I'm just saying it just doesn't. I don't see it. Is it like a cosmetic thing?
Mm-hmm. It's like getting dressed in the morning. Like how you look in the morning doesn't change your ability to do stuff, does it? I suppose a little bit. I mean, you can't walk into a restaurant looking like you can't walk into a restaurant naked, but for the most part, it's like getting dressed in the morning. It's like, oh, I want to present myself in this way.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what you have gear for.
I don't know, man. But to who? Like, even in single player games?
Yeah, to ourselves, it's just make a character.
To all the other boys on the internet, duh.
So as you're playing through a single player RPG, you'll be a ways in and still look at that character and be like, yeah,
100%, 100%.
Yeah, definitely. You know what makes me even happier? If I find out at some point later in the game there is like a character customization station somewhere,
right,
where you can like change hairstyles and shit.
Yeah.
And I will do that. I will definitely do that.
You guys are weird, man. I don't know. I mean, I get it, but at the same time, I really do not. Like, do what makes you happy, 100,000%. But I mean, it doesn't affect or change anything.
Except that it makes me enjoy the game more.
Maybe we're just a little more particular about that stuff.
Could be.
I think that's fine, but I just think, what if like it could actually tie into the gameplay in some way? Wouldn't that be better?
That'd be really cool.
I mean, that'd be kind of cool if I don't know. I feel like that's kind of like a very gray area, though, like a slippery slope. If there's certain racial features that people are more receptive to than others.
Great. I mean, now you have a social commentary thing. Like, I mean, that's not a bad thing necessarily, right? Like, if it's done tastefully and in a way that makes sense, like, now you have something that actually contributes to a discussion.
Well, that already happens in a lot of games, like Enrique, I think it was Enrique, he said earlier, the Khajiit in the Elder Scrolls, they are recognized, or if you're one of the Dark Elves, you are also looked down upon, and you look down upon all the other things because the Dark Elves are flaming racists, for instance.
Yeah, but I mean,
and it does change.
That's
things
more
up.
for character race. I mean, like there hasn't been anything that really contributes to, like the actual details of it, like how big your nose is, or how far apart your eyes are, like whether you're pretty or ugly.
Yeah, I get you. It doesn't have to factor into anything. It's just there for the player, him or herself. Doesn't need to have any function outside of that. It would be great if it did, but doesn't need to. It's just a customization thing. And more choice is always good, isn't it?
Yeah.
I agree, 100%. And okay, here's a good question though. How does it impact your immersion in general?
Quite a bit.
Like,
Yeah, quite a bit.
so like you actually get more investment out of a game because you molded the main character.
Yes.
Well, yeah, of course.
So not only can you mold the world and everything, like you can also mold like your avatar.
Yeah,
in this
I feel
digital
like it's
space.
it's like if you're a writer, you know, you want to create this character, and I think it's kind of the same thing in character creation. It's like you want to create this a representation of something, like whatever you want to put out there, and you have the opportunity to do it with this character.
Yeah, I agree. And, you know, if I manage to make the character in the game look close to the way I look in real life, hell yeah, I'm invested in him. He's me.
I was actually going to ask, is that, do you usually go out to make the characters that look like yourselves as often as possible, or do you just kind of like pick an arbitrary, like, I think this looks good, that's what I'm going to go with?
Yeah, I pick what I consider to be my personal beauty standard, basically, which is not myself.
Yeah, I pick not myself either, or also.
As long as they, like, I can't play female characters in RPGs either, because I can't roleplay as a female, because I just can't. There's nothing against females or anything. I roleplay as the sex that I am in real life.
Mm-hmm.
That's weird. I always play as girls most of the time, either girls or non-humans.
Yeah, I can't do that either. I can't play as non-humans. I always play as human. But they always have a beard. Always.
I like playing as non-humans usually because it's cool to see something different.
Yeah, I get that. I mean, it's a totally valid choice. It's just something that I don't personally do.
I will tell you though that I will concede that I like the tiny dudes. Like I like your gnomes and
Small
like
guys.
whatever the tiny people are in Guild Wars 2.
Oh, the Asura.
I like I like the little tiny people, and normally that's the modeling for their armor and gear is normally just absolutely terrible. But I still like playing little.
It was
tiny
pretty
people.
good.
They're
It
always
was
fun.
pretty good in Guild Wars 2. I think the Asura got they had their own models for everything, so it fit pretty well.
Yeah.
Man, I like
Yeah, I
seeing
think
gnome
that they were pretty
warriors
well
in World of
designed.
Warcraft because you see like this angry tin can pretty much.
All right, so
I can't take gnomes seriously, just as an aside.
in terms of character creation, so I mean, I guess Chris and I are the right ones. And
No doubt about it.
I mean, I guess it all just boils down to what you like.
Man, if you're happy, then I'm happy. But that just does not feel like playing a video game at all. But I would like to see it actually have mechanical impact. I think that would be awesome.
I like games where you can customize in terms of like how you look overall. So I love games that give you different, I guess, art assets in terms of like the armor and weapons you get. Like that looks beautiful to me. But I mean, the whole designing a face, I never spend more than like 5-10 minutes on it.
Okay, wait. I want to ask you guys one question, actually. Do you think that there's a point where they give you too much control over the design of your character? Because I feel sometimes that that's starting to get overwhelming when you have like 100 different sliders.
Yeah, I just ignore the ones that I don't want to change and just focus on the ones that I do want to change.
So you would never reach a point where you're like, this is too much.
No. Like it. Have you realized it by now? I took 4 hours in The Sims before I started playing the game. I can do character customization ad infinitum.
What if they didn't have that many options though, and as a result you only spent 1 hour doing it?
Then I shrug and move on with the rest of the game. I mean, if it's there, I like to use it to the fullest of its potential and the fullest of its capabilities. But if it's not there, then I don't bother with it because it's not there.
And that will almost bring us to the end of episode 31, but we have one last piece of business, and that is the announcement of the game club for this week. And this week the pick will go to Christopher Anderson. Chris, what do you want to play?
Because I just can't seem to put that game down, I'm going to subject all of you to the time vortex that is Elite Dangerous.
Cool.
All
Can't
right.
subject the willing, man. I thought when we were talking about it, it sounded pretty fun.
Oh, there you go. Cool.
You guys want to be space pirates?
Is there more like video stuff coming up? When's the game club of last week
Well,
going up?
Yeah, so the game club kind of got caught up in the holiday mess. It's gonna be up ASAP, so I'm getting home tomorrow, so it should be up Sunday evening, Monday.
Cool.
One of those
There
two
you
for
go.
sure.
All right. Stay tuned for that, and stay tuned for our thoughts on Elite Dangerous. You can always weigh in. Let us know what you think, too. You can find us online at reddit.com/r/selectcharacters. Send us an email to selectcharacters@gmail.com. Find us on Facebook. Find us on Twitter. Find us in our Steam group chat, which I'm trying to hang out in. I've been there a little bit. If I'm not there, just wait. I will be, eventually. And all that good stuff. So get in touch. We want to hear your thoughts about these games as well. And, iTunes, stars, 5 of them. If you think we're worth it, be honest, and get on there and give us the rating. It helps us out a lot.
If you don't think we're worth it, lie. So
Also true. Yeah, that's a good point. Okay. Thank you so very much for listening, as always, and we will see you next week.
Goodbye.
Later.
bye.